and we're connecting with Manchester altc for virtually connecting. So we're going to go directly to Manchester with no time to waste. So Rebecca, can you tell us who's over there in Manchester, please?
Sure. Well, actually, I'll let them tell who they are, but I'm Rebecca Hogue. I live in sunny Santa Clara, California, and yeah, that's me. I'm a co-founder of Virtually Connecting.
I'm Laura Czerniewicz here from Cape Town in South Africa.
And Laura is keynoting tomorrow, so you guys are going to be able to see her on the live stream of the keynote tomorrow. We're going to connect with her earlier than everybody else. And I'm Maha Valley from Cairo, and I'm also the co-founder of Virtually Connecting.
Okay, hi, I'm Sue Buckingham, or Sue Becks on Twitter. I'm from Sheffield Hallam University.
And I can see Teresa there.
Just on the edge. I'm just going to present, so I'm hanging in for a few minutes. I'm Teresa McKinnon from the University of Warwick, and I've known Simon for quite some time now. I'm Warwick Language on Twitter.
Hiya. So over to George.
Good morning. I'm George Station. I'm a lecturer at Cal State Monterey Bay in not so sunny California at the moment because it's 5:40 whatever a.m. But it will be sunny soon.
Lisa?
Hi, and I'm Lisa. I'm from just outside of Chicago. And yeah, it's slightly almost sunny here, so hopefully we'll have a good day. Good California inspired. So.
Okay. Let's go to Manchester.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Catherine?
Sorry.
You have to come closer so we can hear you.
Yeah.
We're doing a place swap here. Here we go.
I'm so sorry I'm late. Who's here?
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Oh, Lisa.
Hi! So good to finally meet you, kind of.
George.
Hello, Catherine.
You. So lovely to be here. I am.
The people on site are connecting on the Hangouts.
I have a really good excuse for being a few minutes late, and that is some of you might know Helen Keegan.
Yes.
She's here. She's downstairs. She's I don't know if she's able to make it upstairs. She's 8 3/4 months pregnant, and her labor has started.
Oh,
Wow.
So I was sitting with her, and she's in labor. Yes.
Wow.
It's a crazy thing. Yes.
That would be a scoop.
The first virtually connecting live birth.
Yeah, wow.
Nuts. Yes.
So tell us in Manchester, what are the things that are striking you over there, apart from Helen's baby on the way?
I suppose my lens that I came here with is open educational practices. So I'm really keen into a lot of the conversations about openness, and my focus is very much on open pedagogy and open educational practices. But even a lot of people here who are in the OER community are talking about moving the conversation on from OER to OEP. I find that encouraging. So that's one thing, Simon.
Okay, Laura?
I have just arrived without my suitcase.
Oh no!
Okay, Sue.
In suitcase, the same outfit tomorrow.
For your keynotes.
For my keynote.
So give us just a sneak peek into your keynote.
Oh yeah, the
Don't
keynote
give us the whole thing.
in 30 seconds. So I'm still working on the title. So the title might change. You know how these things do at the last minute?
Yes, indeed.
So I'm thinking the title's going to be Considering Inequality as Higher Education Goes Online.
That's very important.
So what it is I'm going to be looking at the intersection between current online trends as higher education goes online in the sort of emerging space, and what's going on in terms of inequality globally, and trying to bring them together. It's kind of ambitious.
That's a big topic.
There's so many. There's an intersectionality of inequality.
Exactly. So I did a Google search actually, and there are a lot of possibilities. And unfortunately, it's almost like a new knowledge field, which is a very sad state of affairs. That it's kind of the current issue of the moment, this issue of inequality.
Yes, weren't MOOCs supposed to save the world and provide education for all and democratize education?
And actually, things are getting more unequal in so many places, and so I'm not just coming along from the global south and saying what a terrible situation we're in, because it's everywhere, including right here in Britain. So I'm going to be looking at it from the resource issue is obviously a big issue, and resource in the broadest sense of the world, but I'm going to also look at it through other lenses as well, and how that plays out in education and in the classroom and in people experiences.
So when you say inequality is a new area, I mean it's a new
area of scholarship
in higher education. But I mean there is work done, in cannabis pedagogy and other areas around inequality. But are you talking about new in this context?
I'm talking about there are growing scholarship programs, there are growing curricula, there are growing institutes. The London School of Economics has just started an Inequalities Institute.
Okay, so it's rising.
So ones that aren't just focusing on gender and race.
No. They're looking at broadly, and
I think most of Jonathan Work's talk this morning, right?
I was fighting with people about baggage claims and lost suitcases, so I missed that. Very sad.
But it was a very small part of the
What did you say?
I was just talking about the end, when you plan a course, you have to ask yourself the kind of cultural and all kinds of barriers, and how these are things that are emerging, so you can't advance for students. So
well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point, because there's a difference between diversity and inequality. And there's a fair amount of good focus on diversity, not enough, but that's not the same. I mean, I think diversity does assume some kind of equality. It's a difference, and difference of cultural background is not the same as actual inequality of status.
We're talking about power.
We're talking about power. Exactly.
There seems to be a lot of interest as well in unconscious bias as well. People not realising that they have bias.
Can you guys come closer to the microphone, because we have difficulty hearing?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I missed Sue's last comment. So.
Sorry. Yeah, I was saying there's a growing interest in unconscious bias as well. So there's not actually being aware that you are biased.
Yes.
Do you think about that, something with gender or nationality, ethnicity?
There's a lot of work to be done in that area, unconscious and or implicit bias. It's been around for a few years, but I think it's just now getting some attention.
It's getting more interest in face-to-face classes, but I'm not so sure how much interest it's getting in online spaces.
Right.
And people sort of act like the online space is others. And we don't necessarily have to engage with those just because we're so busy worrying about the platform or something like that.
Or making simple assumptions that it is,
Flat.
by definition, democratizing because it's there. Yeah,
Exactly.
There's one thing which I sort of worry about, is this idea that tools are neutral.
Oh, yes.
I find that very difficult to swallow.
Well, it's a very widespread belief, isn't it?
Yeah.
And non-neutral. So we're looking for a new platform to take our classes online.
Yeah.
And which one is most cost-effective? Is the language I come across quite a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, asking the wrong questions, really. And where do you hit up against it, Simon?
Well, I think that the directly my attitude is that it's really important that they have choice over what tools they're going to use to actually express themselves. But that means also not choosing digital, or not choosing writing, or not choosing to speak in a classroom. So I think that there are really important issues about actually revealing that this idea that these objects are some way disconnected to us or disconnected to power is simply untrue.
Yeah.
And yet very widespread. And how do you challenge that? when it's so obvious to you? The way you say you shrug your shoulders in horror, but how do you tell it?
It's interesting because in the work that we do with Clavier, I'm working with a friend of mine in Africa who's in Cameroon, and this is a discussion that we've had a long time. Is this issue of what is actually we are acquiring, and what is it that we're actually taking on board when we actually encourage our people to take on the internet, to take on mobile, etc. And I think it's taken as something which is progress. I'm not necessarily sure that it is. And the thing that concerns me is what do we have to learn from the other people, and not what they have to learn from us.
But it's one of those things where you have to have it to decide that you don't want it. You can't tell people who don't have access to the internet that they're better off. You need to have
I'm going to jump in with a quick suggestion, just food for thought as we're processing it. We're using a lot of the they pronoun, and it's not, they are not always so much they. You know, it's really us trying to make this all work when we're talking about what do they bring, what do we bring, and so on. And one of the things I'm dealing with right now in my new freshman classes is just that. We've got a lot of different cultures in the room, and a lot of lower income students from all walks, and I'm just starting to get my head around this fall's version of, you know, cultural competence, if you will, to try to make everyone welcome. But then there are still those assumptions that, oh, well, I really do want everyone to be a good presenter in front of the classroom by the end of the semester, right, without taking anything else into account. That's still the default that we're shooting for, that everyone should be comfortable doing that regardless of where they started in late August, right? So that's one of the challenges that I know there are cultural factors in there that by October I may have a sense of, you know, as I know my students. So I just felt we were about to go down another road there with us and them. So thanks.
That's a really interesting point, George. I was listening to one of the short podcasts yesterday, or this short series of audio podcasts about what students think about the use of social media in higher education. And I'm also very aware of this. You know, we often say they, talking about students, and a lot of the students were talking about us and saying that the academics, they don't really know this and they should really learn this. And I thought, wow, interesting to listen to oneself be described, you know, in that flat way. Because I was thinking, we're not all the same. You know? So yeah, so true, and you know, it's a powerful point.
Hello, Caroline.
Oh, is Caroline here?
Yeah, she's frozen.
We can see her, but
hi, Caroline.
we can't hear her. Yeah.
Or she's just very still, but yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she will try and join again.
Yeah.
You know Caroline?
Caroline was in Galway this summer. We were connecting online for a while, and there was supposed to be the PLE conference in Galway in July, and it was cancelled. And so Caroline still came and did a research seminar based on her research in Galway, and then we spent a whole day together kind of sharing where we are with our research, and it was great.
I have a question for Maha.
Me? Yes.
Maha, how do you feel about the alt scene? What's your vision of that?
Are you talking about conference, or are you talking about in general?
Well, I'm just interested in for me, from my perspective, because I lived in Manchester, but I haven't been there for many years. So for me, there's a sense of belonging to Manchester, and there's also this sense of belonging because I'm British. So I'm just wondering whether, from your perspective, there is how you see it, because I know I have that sort of vision for me. How do you see it?
What you observed at lunchtime.
that I've really watched here.
Because there was no one else.
There's nobody else wearing a headscarf
Scarf.
but me in the whole conference. I'm not even sure how many people were not wearing it. There's not. So everybody recognizes me as one person. But that it doesn't make me uncomfortable, but it surprises me because I know Manchester has a lot of Muslim people.
That would be surprising. To only have one person.
Yeah. It's a huge conference to have.
Like for 500 people, yeah.
So it's good for me because I become a celebrity or something like that.
It looks like
so what I like about it is that it's a big enough conference that a lot of people know each other. So it's kind of nice. And I like the fact that when we do the virtual connecting session, people know each other through the session, like face to face, who hadn't met each other yet. It's kind of cool.
There's Caroline.
Hi, Caroline. Do you have sound?
Yes, I have. I had a problem in the train and it all got delayed. I'm so sorry that I haven't joined it before, but well, that's what I could do. So sorry.
You're here now.
Yes, I'm here now. Just hearing about the we and the us and the space between the we and the us, which I think is where really the potential is. I think if we find this common place between what we want to do or what we envision or what we just think would be helpful to do and what they or them want also to realize through technology, I think in that space is a really powerful place to be, and it is hearing what they need, they hearing what we think could be, and in the mix, I think, is really a powerful place to just do amazing things.
Yeah, I think we talked about that at one stage as well, about the using kind of the third space metaphor for that.
It's really
Donna
useful for us.
Lanklo was talking this morning about framing things, and I'm always clear about talking about this as a learning space, not the learning space, because I think particularly in higher education we're very good at saying, here's the space, everything that you need is in this space. So just even saying, here's a space, you use other spaces, this is a space where we will meet, we can meet in other spaces, you have your own spaces, and a lot of those can be third spaces that are not owned, not just in the D&D sense of owned, but in the sense of power and other ways owned by one or the other, but that we enter together and we create.
We were just thinking term for the
Talk a little longer.
The space between professional and a social situation, so kind of like where we're here now, and maybe that's a third space, but I feel like it needs a different term as well. That's also a nice space to meet your students. Right?
Yes,
so that,
absolutely, yes.
So you're not students but teachers in that space, but you're semi-social, semi-professional.
Exactly. That's it, and we all have networks, so it's creating those spaces where we can bring our networks. We can all be together, just like right here, but our networks are here as well. So there's a lot of exchange that's possible. So.
But I think, George, of course, you've been so provocative with what you said. It's very interesting. I think that there's an interesting danger because when we're talking about we in this situation, we're talking about people with very strongly developed digital literacies, and there's a danger in people with very strongly developed digital literacies to start talking about what's wrong with that. So it's wrong. It's a problem to be connected too much of the time, and people who are not so connected are lucky because they don't have those problems. And one has to be very careful to tell people who don't have something that they're better off not having it.
It's kind of like, when some people started to have this sort of backlash against Twitter, saying how Twitter was turning into something different and that they didn't like it anymore, and I said, my Twitter is different than your Twitter. Twitter empowers me. It's what I have now. So you're right. Pushing people away from something that hasn't floated us to the point where we can criticize.
Exactly.
We shouldn't be pushing people and giving, like you said, giving them the choice of how to go next is available. Critiquing it to the extent that they don't.
I was in a conference last week, in fact, where people from some very, very disconnected parts of Africa were really complaining and very unhappy about how literally disconnected they are. They have no connectivity. And there were people there telling them, well, we suffer from too much connectivity. And that conversation did not go down very well. was like, we'll like to have the coffee.
Yes, yes.
And then we'll choose to stick.
And then make
It's
our own
I mean,
choices.
there's a lot of stuff about agency and it's to decide.
Yeah.
One of the issues though about saying about advanced digital literacy is that at a big conference like this one, I don't know.
You're going to have to talk louder. They're not going to
At
hear
a big conference like this one, we all have different levels of digital literacy, so we're not always having the same conversation.
Do you
So
think
I
even
know-
in this one?
Yeah. So like all of us here, I talk to all of you on Twitter, so I know we're sort of on a similar wavelength. In another talk, you ask a question and you answer about open education. You realize we're talking from a different worldview, and it's not really, we're not that distant, right? We're all learning people.
Okay.
That's like people do. So
That's interesting. Because if you can't make that assumption in this audience, you were asking what's else like. If you can't make assumptions about advanced digital literacy in this audience, then you can make it nowhere. I mean, Simon, I really like the alt community. I think it's diverse enough that you will definitely find people to talk to. And what I like about it is that it's a nice intersection between theory and practice. So I don't know if that's a third space, but it's a good space.
I'm interested about this idea of third space, because we talk a lot about third space, but I'm just wondering what each of you mean by that.
Sorry, I'm reading this. Somebody says we are virtually connecting rebels.
Right.
I don't know. When that concept of third space came up, it became a very valuable thing for us in our talk. We're going to be talking about Facebook and how the Rhizo group changed from this group of colleagues talking to each other collegially by a simple Facebook friend request. But once that friend request came in, you enter into a different space, right? My Facebook that was professional is now talking to my Facebook that is personal. And I'm sharing a different part of me through that. But that, in some ways, is sort of that third space, because I have these sort of professional people that are reading my personal Facebook feed as well. So it's sort of an interesting...
for me, when I say third space, and I remember we talked about it a lot when we were doing Wiki, but it's just a different space than, it's not the blurred, it's not well defined like other spaces. So if you look at what Simon has on his third, his lower 30s, that's virtually connecting really. So we're somewhere between being virtual and real, and somewhere between being in the context of social.
Virtually, he's all like this
And
virtually.
third spaces have power too. I think sometimes I think about them as they maybe some of the power me, but they don't. They have a different power.
Yeah, of course. Real space. A lot of people talk about third space, obviously, and use it in different ways, and so it's a rich concept in many ways. But I have used a lot of work Chris Gutierrez has done. If you're familiar with her work, she talked about using it in the language classroom in school, and so students were learning English in school context, and she and her fellow teachers found that other language teachers were saying to the students, you cannot bring in your idioms and your slang and whatever. This is the language. This is proper English. And she found that by inviting the students to bring those modes of talk and humor and story and so on, it became a much richer learning space. So it wasn't the students' informal space or the formal classroom space. She was creating, as she saw it, a third space. And she talked about power and all of that. So I find that a rich way to think about students coming in. Students come to higher education with their identities and networks and learning practices that exist already, whether they call them or conceive of them as such is another question. And rather than saying, okay, drop all those at the door and step over the threshold, and now you're 007652 in the Blackboard, and this is how we do it, that we can use open online spaces, those can be third spaces. So we can say, bring all of that, we'll bring ourselves, and we can still use institutional spaces. It doesn't have to be either or. But what's possible in those third spaces is really important.
And but we're also like in language learning, I think a lot of recent research is about modern language teachers. Was that the language fluency develops more when they're using it informally.
Yes.
Learning it in class.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that you don't need to learn the grammar, but it also means that you need those informants.
Yeah, so it's the both ends. Yes, precisely. Yeah, it's really useful. So anyway, the work is very inspiring to Chris here. She does a lot more with that. That's the one that emerged.
Can you come closer to the microphone? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry.
It's long for thinking your voice is so. Maybe you can teach your voice.
So Simon, you asked the question. I don't know if anybody has any other conceptions of third space, maybe that are different to what's been mentioned already, or George.
Got one. And it's really inspired by Stephanie, but as I was listening to the different ideas of third space, we think in terms of dichotomies so much. It's either a human thing or whatever, that we're always looking for a third something. And so I thought of, this is Stephanie by way of Howard Rheingold, who introduced me to Oldenburg and the concept of the third place. Right. So I was immediately was thinking third place, forgot all about it, as you were talking about third space. It came back when Stephanie mentioned it, something that cued me again. But it's also that we're always looking for that third something that is not either of the extremes. Freud, Jung, and Adler had what he called the third way, and I'm not even supposed to know about that. This is my dilettante coming out, that's what I'm doing here, right? It's yeah, sure, I lecture, but I'm social media dilettante, hoping to be something else along the way as I'm interacting with everyone. But there's that third space where something better is supposed to happen. I really prefer that third place, and in fact I introduced the third place, Oldenburg, to my students just enough to be dangerous, right? But they get it. They know what that means. Not to have a place that is neither home nor work, yes, but still it's a place where they want to interact, right?
And you went ahead and mentioned wonderful Howard Rheingold, George. I think that's where we first met. It was on the Minds app in 20.
Probably, yeah.
The first time that we connected. I think it was the summer of 2011.
I didn't realize that was the first.
Yes.
No, it was Howard did a series of
courses. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Howard did a series of courses.
Yeah, and it was what he had coined his own term.
Co-learning?
No, not co-learning, but he used a lot of those concepts. I don't know. Do you remember the name of the?
Yeah.
The hashtag was MindAmp, but that wasn't the name of the course.
It was Mind Amplifiers. Was the actual introduction to Mind Amplifiers was actually the name of the course that we were first in.
Yes. It was infotension. That's what it was.
Oh yes.
Information and attention. The whole idea of stream of information.
Yeah. In fact, as we first started on Google+, I remember throwing in that hashtag in the first few months. So there are some very old posts with that MindAmp and infotension hashtag still out there, obviously. So.
Some of them aren't so old.
Well, old and internet old. Internet old.
Well, I don't know. You look very old. Look at the room you're in. It's full of books.
Yeah, this is the real bookcase. This is the real bookcase. It's not a backdrop.
It's wonderful to see.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Anything else you want to talk about?
Caroline, we're seeing the top of your head.
No, I'm just taking notes about third place, and because I'm working with the idea of personalized learning environments that students will build by themselves. They will design those spaces, and I'm always thinking, is it a place, is it a space, is it a third place, is it just a place, is it possible, is it an utopia, is it an kind of really thinking about it very hard, and I haven't found out anything. I think I am in a good way, in a good path, because I haven't found out anything. So it means that there is something to think about it.
There's
definitely-
slightly different literature in third place and third stage,
Yes.
so that confuses me. So there's the Homi Baba
Yes,
cultural,
yes.
post-colonial idea,
Mm.
and there's the other one, and I get confused between.
Yeah.
Actually, your discussion has actually just sort of made me think a little about, because we do a lot of language learning exchanges, notably with Teresa. And one thing that I'm really interested in at the moment is the whole business of lingua franca, because we have exchanges between, for example, the French and British universities. But often in the British university, if I take the case of Warwick, there are many, many students who are not actually British at all. They come from all sorts of countries all around the world. But from the colleagues who are in France, they think this is fine. You're actually connecting with a British university. Therefore, you're going to have British English. Well, I had another experience which was with Italian students. So the French students connected with the Italian students, and they couldn't speak each other's language. And the only language which they could actually communicate with was English. And what was really interesting was that their attitude to English changed rapidly. They were no longer stressed out by this idea of living up to a model of what they thought they had to live up to. They were simply going about communicating with people that they actually were attracted to communicate with. And I suspect that this is a little like what you're talking about. It's that space where the power issues are a bit more equal.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then you can actually take the risk to open yourself up to find something which you can actually be of benefit to both of you. And the communication which goes on in between is that, for me, the third place in what I do.
Yes. And like George said, I think it's that, that urge that we have to go beyond the binaries. And so whatever we call it, it comes from that place.
It's a wonderful example.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think there is another thing which working with people from all over the place. What I notice, particularly going to a conference, is that my imagination is never rich enough to imagine what's behind that third place. That's to say that we come to a conference, we have these conversations. I have a very good friend, and we sat showing each other photographs of where we were from. I could never ever have imagined where he was from or his life, ever. Because we were meeting at this level of a sort of conference level, speaking an English or a French, because he spoke both, which we could both relate to about subjects which we were interested to, but in a sense that masked the real questions, which came out when we lived together for about 3 months, and then it really hit those differences.
Why was that a mask?
Sorry?
Why was that a mask?
It was a mask, I suppose, because I think from my perspective, perhaps not from him, I took it an awful lot for granted about the decisions, what for me were very simple decisions, what for him were very complicated decisions. Just going to a restaurant, for me, was simple. I didn't even think of it. For him, it was complicated.
So you're sort of saying sometimes our similarities, when we focus on our similarities, we don't realize that there are differences that might be affecting how we go about it.
And I think in some ways it's the assumption of similarity. So not even realizing that there is a difference, right? It's like if you don't know about someone, and this happens online all the time, right? You have this tendency to assume they're the same age you are. They have some of the same thought, same things. And so age is one that I always found particularly interesting, because when I did my master's degree, it was the thing that when we finally got together face to face, I realized that I was one of the younger people in the room. But I hadn't, I knew these people had grandkids, but it just never clued into me that they were a different age, right? Like, it's just this, and it's one of those weird things that you just sort of have that.
I don't either.
I mean, I'm always very interested to know.
There's a stage.
Yeah.
Now I have to think about it. I mean, what I find so interesting about the online is I have no idea. So like when I do the thing that I've been doing at this conference is going to meet people. I had no idea how old you are. People's images that they use tell you nothing. I, for example, have got this ridiculous principle, which there's no basis whatsoever that I have ever changed my basis of salvation because of some kind of statement about the constant fluidity of changing your identity, and I'm persisting. But of course, that means that my picture is getting increasingly out of date.
My Facebook picture is me when I was 5 years old.
Well, that's the one. But that's another way of solving it. Yeah. But it means that when I come and look at people and I've got the avatar in my mind, I have no idea. And sometimes I've been talking to somebody Lucky.
Lucky, yeah.
Yes.
She's got a double head picture.
Is that a male or female?
I always wondered if it's a guy, right? Half Lucky is a guy.
Hello? Sept, are you there?
We're all here eavesdropping on your conversation.
I think I think
bonding. Are you all bonding over there and leaving us out?
I think Stephanie had a question for us, or was going to say something.
Well, I actually want to go back to the idea of the third place or the third space in a public place. I think conferences may be a little bit different than the traditional community place that the books talk about, because a conference, you're all there for one purpose. You're there, I mean, you're obviously networking, but you're there because you share an interest in something on a professional level. And so you already have that commonality. I think a true third place or public place that's a community thing is almost random in its nature. A year or so ago, I was visiting New York City. Actually, I was in New Jersey. But I took the path into New York City and sat by a woman whom I had never seen before, and we struck up a conversation. And now here, a year and a half later, we are still connected. And that's kind of, I mean, we have nothing in common at all. I mean, we just happen to be on the same train, and we still have nothing in common, and yet it's this relationship that has formed. And I think that's the great thing about the virtual space that we have never really had before, because we were able to continue this relationship once we got off the train. And then when we're talking about masks, I think everyone wears a mask until they feel safe. And I think, Simon, that may be part of what goes on. As you get to know somebody, you start to feel safe, so you start to take your mask off, and the other person just backs off and says, no, I'm not ready for that. I'm still not ready for that. And I think we run into that with our students. Some of them are willing to take that risk to be vulnerable and to be real much sooner than others. And I think we need to make sure we give them the freedom to feel safe or not feel safe, and so they don't feel badly if they don't take their masks off at the same time everybody else does. And if maybe they do meet up at the mall somewhere that has nothing to do with school and don't talk about school, but they're still meeting in this third place, this extra place that we haven't really provided for them, but that they can take advantage of. I've left you all speechless.
I'm just thinking actually that the third place, one of the problems. Go on, Judge.
No, we're processing.
All right.
Please go ahead.
One of the problems with this idea of third place is that the third place is completely different for each person. Therefore, what I imagine is the third place is what I imagine is a third place, and not necessarily for the other person at all, or for the other people.
Yeah, that's really, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how we get it typed. That's how we get it typed in. It's in there. We're going to have to close off here. We're about to come into a break, and the space is about to get really noisy. And we have our Rise of 14 talk, so we have to get organized.
Oh dear.
And I'm down at 10% batteries. So yeah. So thank you everybody for coming together and chatting with us.
Thanks for letting us eavesdrop on your conversations.
Bye.
Thank you. Good luck.
Great to see everyone.
Bye, Kath.
Bye.
See you online.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Do you guys want to continue a little, or are you in a
I've got
different
a couple of minutes. I'm up anyway, but yeah.
I feel you, George.
Yeah, I actually need to go. But yeah, it was good talking and meeting with you guys. Wow, this is really deep stuff for, 8 o'clock.
We're sensing potential conference presentations, and now that we've kind of linked the third space and third place and started that binary discussion, I think Catherine threw out the word binary. But there's something there that's obviously got us all going, because we were all kind of riffing on it and building on it. So.
But I love that. That's what I love about these things, because we can, and it doesn't cost a fortune because we don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, the blending of ideas. All right, bye. I do have to go, but bye, guys.
Okay.
It was nice. Yeah,
Bye,
thank you.
Lisa.
Bye.
Okay, bye, Lisa. So, yeah. So, I wasn't going to point my students to any of this. It's like, oh, one more task or one more thing that a class has to do, or they think they have to do because the instructor recommended it, right? But now this one, I think I might just kind of drop the link into their community, or into Moodle or something, just to see what happens, because we started off. I guess Simon, are you editing, or is
no editing, George?
The way it's just going up as an Hangout on Air, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that means that from the time you said live, that's when we went in.
We're
And
still
it started off great. It started off fairly informally, and yet it was all right. And I think that's one of the challenges for people who don't do this much. I don't do it a lot. I'm not in Hangouts a lot. But the challenge is, we think it has to be formal and perfect. And I was already thinking, oh, somebody's editing something here. But no, it's just going to be up. And maybe it's okay for our students to see that as well, that it's not ephemeral, it's not gone forever, it's informal, and yet some good still came out of it. In the academic sense, some good still came out of it, right?
And still may, if we put together a presentation, a conference presentation on the idea of linking the third space with the place and put it all together in a way that is new and interesting. And I think we've got some foundational thoughts here we can use.
You know what? I think that what you just said, that although it was an informal meeting, so to say, and that good things came out, I think one of the core things that we can transmit, or that we can, I don't like the word model, but yes, that we can be a living example of, is that for things to galvanize, or for good things to come out, every one of us is really into the topic that we are in. And every one of us has some kind of knowledge, because we're interested in, and because we're reading about it, because we're trying to find out about it. And that's, I think, the core issue that one needs, is to have some kind of knowledge about whatever you're interested in. And it's not about being academically or having a discourse that no one understands. It's just being about genuinely interested in an idea, and having the knowledge enough so that good things can come into spontaneous conversations, because you don't need really to have a talk in a conference. We're just in a hangout, interested in the same idea, and look how amazing stuff just came out. But I think that we are into the topic, and we have a base, a ground-based knowledge in which we are building the spontaneity that is coming out now. That's what I think. Sorry for my English.
It's better than some of my students, so.
I think that there was a blog post of Dave Cormier's, which was about maybe a month ago or 6 weeks ago, about this issue of us, we and them.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing which I feel more and more is that is so fluctuating. It changes all the time. I don't know about you, but my perception of who we are and who they are, and but it's mainly based on we, and the they are the others. And that we changes constantly. I just having this conversation, going from one hangout to the next, the we suddenly changes completely, and the chemistry changes, and then I'm not quite sure where I am as far as all these the tool is concerned.
Yeah.
What was really interesting was when they were having the discussion together, and the breakup in the sound quality, and they were completely apparently so taken up with that that the outside world suddenly no longer existed.
Yep.
Oh.
And that's
Well,
actually a sign of a true connection, right?
Yeah.
It is. Yes, it is.
Yeah. We were we were still in the network because we were all still in the hangout, right?
Yeah.
Right. But suddenly those connections got stronger for a while, and we had the side chat, so we were kind of continuing in our own way a little bit in the side chat, but they really had visualizing it, their nodes got bigger, I guess, and ours shrank a little bit, and then it kind of equalized again a little bit later. So that was fascinating to be in the middle of all that, or to I didn't feel in the middle, but to be connected to all that.
Yeah. Eavesdropping, really, sort of.
It's a sort of weird theatrical space where you have the impression that you are one of the cast, and you're suddenly spun out to be the audience, and you're not quite sure where you are.
Good metaphor there.
That's a great metaphor. I even wrote it down. It's so good.
And I think I'm just dropping the link into the chat that I think is the one that Simon was talking about. I actually have not read this post yet, so but it's from Dave Cormier, right? Cormier, excuse me.
Because this was a really big issue in RISO 14.
Yeah.
Was the whole issue of who felt they were RISO 14.
Oh. Yeah.
And it was a sort of it's like a sort of state of possession. This is ours. And there was that feeling, that was not really RISO 14 at all. But I mean, what is it? It's just a hashtag. But people got very emotive about it.
Okay.
On different scale, we see that on Twitter a lot, where someone thinks they own a hashtag, and then Twitter self-corrects to inform them otherwise. That happens a lot with people trying to basically control the conversation on something, and the conversation isn't going to be controlled, barring governmental forces and so on. I mean, the conversation on Twitter is not going to be controlled, and Twitter lets everybody know that when somebody gets a little too full of themselves and thinks they're going to drive the conversation a certain way.
But I think this is the thing which concerns me, is this issue you've just talked about. For me, it's a bit like the playground. That's to say that you go outside in the playground and you can do what you like, as long as you don't kill anybody. But the question is, who's the playground for? Yeah. Is the playground for the kids, or is the playground for the people who say, well, we need to let them run around a bit, because otherwise they're going to be really uptight and they may be disruptive of what we're trying to put into place? And that's what concerns me about the whole business of the internet, is that you can say what you like, doesn't matter, as long as we know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's always also a thing of common understanding. I mean, a common language, or at least being in a. I think Umberto Eco said that there are so many books as readers are, and yeah, I think that it is just each of us have a different understanding.
I wonder if there are now with the internet, if there are as many spaces as there are users.
I think you're right. Lovely what you just said. And I think, yeah, well, and I was thinking exactly when someone was talking about the uniqueness of your own space. I think that that's one of the things that will happen, that the learning spaces that students craft for themselves, they are just unique and they are just customized to what they think they need, or they want the effort they want to put in, or how much committed they are to what they are learning. Or so yes, I think it's really, there's so much spaces that people are in the internet and trying to inhabit each of those spaces.
And respect the spaces of the others who are there. It's a whole new world.
Well, it's amazing being in the middle of this, isn't it? It's just...
It is mind-boggling to me.
We were saying yesterday that it's amazing to be part of this. Someone arises there. Hello.
It's pretty. I think about this quite a lot. Is what is this world that I don't understand, which she understands in a completely different way? Because for her, this is normal.
Mm-hmm.
She's constantly butting into conversations with people all around the world, and I'm not quite sure if she quite understands where all these people are. I think they're just on the TV. And with the TV, when she was a bit younger, she was putting her fingers on the TV and it said the TV wasn't working.
But that happened to me when I was a child. I always was thinking, where are those people? I was kind of saying, and they're really suffering when I was seeing maybe a drama. I was saying, oh my God, they're so... And I think that when you're a child, everything is really so human and everything is so alive. You just can't understand that it's acting or that people are... I mean, the naivety and the genuinity of the child's mind is such a lovely thing because it gives life to everything. It's just, yeah, it puts everything alive, I think, and it's lovely. Just child minds, I love them.
Well, it's going to be a long journey of discovery for all of us.
Absolutely. I hope until we die, I think.
Even after, I hope.
Yeah, well, you're very optimistic. Yes.
No. When there's doubt, there's hope.
I absolutely agree. Thank you very much. It was I came late, but it was a lovely chat.
Thank you, Caroline.
Caroline, thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
George.
Stephanie, good to meet you.
Good to meet you, George.
Caroline, too. Yep, we will. We'll find you on the... This is Simon, thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and...
Very much.
Thanks,
Stephanie.
Thank you, Simon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care, Simon. Bye-bye.